There are moments in this fandom that stop you completely. Not the viral clips, not the chart records, not even the sold-out stadiums. The moments that truly get to you are the quiet ones, the ones that come from people who have no reason to exaggerate, no reason to hype, and no audience to perform for. The moments that come from people who have watched from the inside for years and finally say out loud what they have always seen. This is one of those moments. And if you are an ARMY who has spent years defending Jimin, believing in Jimin, watching Jimin pour himself onto every single stage, this one is going to mean something to you. Let me set the scene for you. An Indian media outlet called Namaste K-pop recently sat down with a guest that a lot of international ARMY might not be deeply familiar with, but who holds a very specific and very significant place in BTS history. His name is Lee Hyun. You might also know him by his alter ego Midnight. And here is why his words carry so much weight. Lee Hyun is not just a big hit music artist. He is the very first artist that Big Hit Entertainment ever signed. He has been under that label since 2007. That is before BTS. That is before the company was even called HYBE. That is before any of this became the global phenomenon it is today. Let that sink in for a second. Lee Hyun has watched Big Hit grow from the ground up. He was there before the trainee system that shaped BTS. He was there through the early years when the company was struggling. He has existed under the same roof, artistically and professionally, as BTS for over a decade. He has seen these members develop not just as performers, but as human beings. He knows what this company expects. He knows what dedication looks like inside these walls. He knows what it means to give everything to your craft at Big Hit Music. So when the interviewer at Namaste K-pop asked him a seemingly simple question, "Who is the hardest working artist you know?" it was not a throwaway question. And it was not a throwaway answer. Without hesitation, Lee Hyun said, he loves all the artists. But when it comes to the artist who constantly asks the most questions, who actively seeks feedback before and after every single stage, and who makes a deliberate effort to try something new every time he performs, that artist is Jimin. Let that land. This is not a fan saying this. This is not a blogger writing a think piece. This is the man who has been at Big Hit longer than anyone else in the building, longer than BTS themselves, looking directly at a camera in front of an international audience, and naming ParkJimin as the artist who stands out above all others when it comes to effort, hunger, and the relentless pursuit of growth. And if you have been following Jimin's journey at all, you know that this is not a surprise. You know exactly why Lee Hyun said his name. Because we have seen it. For years, Jimin joined BTS as the last member added to the group. He came from a background in modern dance, not vocal training. And from the very beginning, he knew it. He has spoken about it honestly in multiple interviews over the years. He has said that when BTS debuted, he did not feel ready. He did not feel confident. He felt like he was running behind the others, trying to catch up to something he was not sure he would ever reach. But here is what most people do not understand about Jimin. That feeling, that constant sense that he was not quite there yet, did not break him. It became the engine that drove everything he did. There is a moment from the Burn the Stage documentary that longtime ARMY will never forget. Jungkook, BTS's main vocalist, was asked about Jimin's work ethic. And what Jungkook said was quietly devastating in the best possible way. He said that Jimin asks him so many questions about vocal technique. He said that the way Jimin sings is very different from the way Jungkook sings, and that Jimin is always searching for a better way to use his voice. And then he said something that still hits hard. Jimin feels bad after every performance. Even the great ones. He looks at the monitor. He reviews the footage. He asks the staff if he did well. And then he asks to do it again. The director of one shoot reportedly told him, "I'm satisfied, you don't need to redo it." Jimin, lying on the floor from exhaustion, said he wanted to redo it anyway. The director's response, "I knew you'd say that." This is the person Lee Hyun is talking about. Not a caricature of a hard worker. Not someone who performs effort for the cameras. Someone who genuinely cannot rest when he feels like there is still a better version of the performance waiting to be found. And the thing that makes Lee Hyun's observation so powerful is the specific detail he chose to highlight. He did not just say Jimin works hard. He said Jimin asks questions. He said Jimin seeks feedback. He said Jimin tries something new on every single stage. That is not just work ethic. That is artistic intelligence. That is the difference between someone who practices the same thing over and over and someone who practices with intention, who looks at every performance as data, every stage as an experiment, every show as an opportunity to become something more than what they were yesterday. Jimin himself confirmed this in his April 2026 Rolling Stone interview. When asked about the Arirang album and his approach to group work after his solo years, he said that he learned during his solo activities not to be afraid of creating songs. He said he has been trying to approach the group album without fear, asking questions, continuously attempting new things. He talked about how he participated in writing and composition on the album, including on the tracks They Don't Know About Us and Into the Sun. Asking questions, continuously attempting new things. This is not just something Jimin says when a camera is pointed at him. This is something Lee Hyun has observed behind closed doors, in the spaces where no one is watching, in the ordinary daily rhythms of being an artist under the same label. Lee Hyun did not see Jimin at his best moments on a stage in front of 80,000 fans. He saw Jimin in the quiet moments, in the hallways, in the practice rooms, in the conversations that happen between people who share the same building and the same company and the same understanding of what it costs to do this work. And after all of that, after years of watching, the name he said was Jimin. Now let us talk about what this means in the context of where Jimin is right now, because this interview happened at a moment that feels particularly important. BTS is currently in the middle of the Arirang World Tour, the most anticipated comeback in K-pop history. After nearly 4 years away, after mandatory military service, after solo eras that proved each member could stand completely on their own, all 7 of them have come back together. And the scale of what they are doing right now is genuinely unprecedented. The Arirang World Tour spans more than 85 dates across 34 cities in 23 countries. It is the largest K-pop tour in history. It features a revolutionary 360-degree in the round stage design. And by every measure, ticket sales, streaming numbers, fan response, it is living up to every expectation that was placed on it. At Stanford Stadium just days ago, BTS performed 3 sold-out shows, tens of thousands of fans per night. And through all of it, Jimin was doing exactly what Lee Hyun described. His warrior styling at Stanford dominated fan conversations online. His soaring vocals drew responses loud enough to rival the music itself. And between shows, because this is who Jimin is, you can be completely certain that he was reviewing footage, asking for feedback, and thinking about what he could do differently the next night. This is the pattern. This has always been the pattern. And what makes this pattern so extraordinary is that it did not begin at Stanford Stadium. It did not begin with the Arirang Tour, or with his solo era, or even with BTS reaching the kind of global scale that puts them in conversation with the biggest acts in music history. This pattern began in a small practice room, years before anyone outside of Korea had heard his name, when a young man from Busan who joined Big Hit Entertainment as a trainee with almost no formal vocal background decided that he was going to outwork the gap between where he was and where he needed to be. That is the origin of everything. Not talent, not luck, not a viral moment, a decision. Because here is something that gets overlooked when we talk about Jimin's achievements. He was not the expected star of BTS. He was the last member added to the group. He had the shortest training period of anyone. When he debuted in 2013, by his own admission, he did not feel ready. And there were people, inside the industry and outside of it, who questioned whether he belonged at the level BTS was reaching. Whether his voice was strong enough, whether his range was wide enough, whether he could hold his own alongside members who had trained longer, started earlier, arrived with more of the conventional tools that the industry rewards. What those people did not account for was what Lee Hyun saw, what Jungkook saw, what RM saw when he watched Jimin elevate the team through sheer force of presence and effort. They did not account for the person who would stay in the practice room after everyone else had gone home, who would ask the same question 10 different ways until he found an answer that actually changed something, who would go on stage in front of tens of thousands of people and still, in the back of his mind, be cataloging what was not quite right so he could fix it tomorrow. There is a version of the story where Jimin looks at everything he has already accomplished, the Billboard records, the sold-out world tour, the critical recognition, the fandom that genuinely changed his life as much as he changed theirs, and he exhales, where he decides that he has proven enough, where he lets himself coast on what is already remarkable. That version of Jimin does not exist. It has never existed. And that is precisely what Lee Hyun was pointing to when he said that name without hesitation in that interview room in India. Not the Jimin the world sees on stage. The Jimin that the inside of big hit music knows, the one who never stops reaching. Think about what Jimin has built just in his solo career. His 2023 single, Like Crazy, made him the first Korean solo artist ever to debut at #1 on the Billboard Hot 100. His debut album Face went to #2 on the Billboard 200, making it the highest charting album by a Korean solo artist in the chart's history at the time. He received his RIAA Gold certification for Angel PT1. His song Promise broke SoundCloud records. And through all of it, he kept saying publicly that he did not feel like enough. He kept pushing. He kept asking questions. V once told Rolling Stone, Jimin's range is vastly superior. Jungkook praised his vocal growth. RM has spoken about how Jimin's presence and talent elevated BTS as a whole. And now Lee Hyun, the person who has been inside Big Hit longer than anyone, adds his voice to that conversation. At some point, when enough people who have no reason to lie all say the same thing, you have to stop calling it bias and start calling it the truth. Jimin is the hardest working artist in that building. Not because he has to be, not because anyone is forcing him to be, but because he cannot imagine being anything less. Because every stage to him is a promise. Because every performance carries the weight of the people who gave their time and their emotion and their trust to come watch him, and he refuses to let that trust go unrewarded. Lee Hyun has been at Big Hit for almost 20 years. He has watched trends come and go. He has seen artists rise and fall. He has been through the experimental Midnight era, where Big Hit used AI voice synthesis technology to help him release music in 6 different languages, a project born entirely from his desire to reach a wider global audience, to find ways to connect beyond the limits of what any single person can do alone. He understands the ambition it takes to want more. He recognizes it in himself, and he recognized it in Jimin. That is not a small thing. When a veteran looks at the work around him and picks one name, that name means something. And there is one more thing worth saying, something that often gets lost in the noise of fan cams and trending hashtags and chart updates. The K-pop industry is not an easy place to exist as a sensitive person. The expectations are enormous. The scrutiny is constant. Every flaw gets magnified. Every misstep becomes a headline. And the pressure to be everything to everyone, to fans, to the label, to the industry, is the kind of weight that has broken people who looked, from the outside, like they were completely fine. Jimin has never looked like he was completely fine. And that honesty is part of what makes him so rare. He has never pretended that it was easy. He has never performed confidence he did not feel. He has stood in front of cameras and admitted that he was scared, that he was uncertain, that he did not know if he was doing it right. He has let ARMY see the version of him that checks the monitor after every take. The version that lies on the floor exhausted and still asks to go again. The version that, even after Like Crazy hit #1 on the Billboard Hot 100, making him the first Korean solo artist to ever achieve that, still talked about what he needed to improve. That kind of self-awareness is not a weakness. In the world Lee Hyun has inhabited for nearly 2 decades, that kind of self-awareness is the rarest, most valuable thing an artist can possess. Because it means the growth never stops. It means the ceiling keeps moving. It means that the Jimin performing on stage at Stanford Stadium in May 2026 is genuinely better than the Jimin who performed there in 2022. Not just because of time, but because of 10,000 questions asked in the spaces between. And for all the ARMY watching this right now, the ones who have been there since the beginning, the ones who found Jimin during his solo era, the ones who are new to this fandom and trying to understand what makes BTS what it is, this is the answer. Not the records, not the charts, not the sold-out stadiums, as incredible as all of that is. The answer is a man who cannot stop asking how to be better. A man who feels bad after every performance not because he failed, but because he can already see the version of himself that would have done it differently. A man who every single night, on every single stage, tries something new, and then goes home and thinks about trying something newer still. That is ParkJimin. That is who Lee Hyun was talking about in that interview. And that is who ARMY has known all along. If this video meant something to you, If hearing that validation from someone inside Big Hit himself touched a part of you that has always believed in Jimin, I want you to do 3 things right now. First, hit subscribe, because we cover Jimin and BTS with the kind of depth and care this fandom deserves, and you do not want to miss what is coming next. Second, drop a comment below and tell me, what is your favorite JiminStage moment? The one that made you realize exactly who he is as a performer. I want to read every single one. And third, share this video. Send it to the army in your life who needs to hear this today, because some days we all just need someone from the inside to confirm what we already knew in our hearts. Jimin has always been this. He will always be this. And now, the first artist Big Hit ever signed has made sure the world knows it too. We will see you in the next one.